We all agree that censorship is bad, it's wrong, and shouldn't be a thing in video games, right? Censorship of things like content, censorship of things like language, character models. Generally, censorship is not something that we should support, which is why I think that this is bad. Azur Lane and Memento Mori have both been very heavily censored within China recently. And I know what you're thinking. This is just China. It doesn't affect us. And that is not entirely true. It might not affect us necessarily at this very moment, but it could nevertheless have disastrous rippling effects further down the line, which is why I want to talk about this topic today. Both Neural Cloud and Azur Lane have gotten hit with massive censorship strikes today. Now, the types of censorship in question are completely different. On the one hand, Memento Mori had its characters, the character models in specific, and its live 2D models either censored or removed entirely, and Azur Lane had certain aspects of the game altered to better fit the idiots that govern China. Before we go ahead and talk any more about censorship though, I want to take a moment to thank all of our incredible patrons over on Patreon whose support means that I never have to worry about getting censored on YouTube. I genuinely appreciate that. Additionally, if you guys have a moment, consider following me over on Twitch. I stream gacha games there every weekend, and I'm going to be streaming Blue Protocol there this Saturday and Sunday. Now, I made a mistake. By the way, I mentioned Memento Mori in the beginning of this video. That's not the case. The games that are censored were Neural Cloud and Azur Lane. So I apologize. Now, Neural Cloud specifically here announced that 2 different characters got censored, but were caught lying, having additional characters censored, and the preview of live 2D character models entirely disabled. There is a thread dedicated to that over on NGA, but here are a few of the censored images in question. I know there are gonna be players that are out there like, but the censored version is better, or it's not that big a deal. It is always a big deal. It doesn't matter if you like the before or the after. The fact is, these characters should not have been censored. These are the forms that the characters took initially, whether revealing or completely covered. They are the forms that we should get. And I will admit that the characters that were censored, the new models don't look bad. Now, Azur Lane was touched on a little more over on NGA as well. There is a lot to comb through here, but it was summarized in a much more digestible format over on Reddit, thankfully. It was also touched on over on the Azur Lane subreddit with additional information and additional context. The initial thread goes on to state that the Oath Ring was renamed the Eternal Gift Box. They've adjusted character portrait display in the Grand Fleet members interface. They've adjusted some character drawings. They've adjusted a lot, actually. But most importantly here, outside of those adjustments, was an alteration made to the Oath system. The Oath system in Azur Lane is where you raise your affinity with a character to a certain point, and then you can propose to them. You end up marrying them. You can actually marry a multitude of different characters. After getting married, the character in specific gets this unique portrait frame. In China, that was now supposedly censored because China doesn't believe you should have more than a single displayed waifu, and I feel like that is entirely down to their own subjective opinion. Like, whether you support relationships that are more open, that consist of a multitude of people, whether you support marriages that consist of multiple people, is completely irrelevant. This is a feature that has existed in the game and has allowed players to marry and display their waifus for years, and is an absolutely ridiculous thing to censor. Now, supposedly the reasoning for the censoring of the Oath system, the reasoning for the censorship of so many different characters, is another ship girl game called Fu Shao. I've never heard of this game before. I don't know what its English name is. Apparently it released a while ago, and the game was so bad that people started spamming, I'm assuming in-game across their social media, maybe their forums, why not play Azur Lane instead? And let's be honest here. That has happened in a multitude of games. The Shadowlands expansion for World of Warcraft came out and people were like, why don't we just play Shadowbringers in Final Fantasy XIV? Tower of Fantasy came out and people were like, why don't we just play Genshin Impact? Now again, this is just speculation. This has not been confirmed, I don't think, but apparently, supposedly, players went out and started leaving 1-star reviews on the Google Play Store and various different gaming websites. Then supposedly, and I'm gonna keep saying that here because this has not been confirmed as fact that I am aware of, the company behind Fushao went and reported Azur Lane to the police for reasons like sexual content, suggestive themes, which, you know, if you've played Azur Lane, isn't entirely untrue. If you've played like the majority of gacha games online, isn't entirely untrue. Also, nudity? No, there's no nudity in Azur Lane. I feel like they do a pretty good job at making sure their characters are covered enough. And most importantly, glorifying Axis ships, which explains why only the names of German and Japan ship girls are censored. The game was like, if I'm going down, then I'm not going down without you kind of fight. So to save the game, Manju decided to go in like full survival mode to prevent Azur Lane being reported and getting their reputation ruined. Apart from censoring the Axis names, they'll censor 100+ of the ship's portraits, including the live 2D models, and adding tons of clothes to their characters. The oath system will get a revamp. The oath system will be removed and changed to proof of forever friendship. So you're no longer married to the characters. You're just really good friends with potentially some benefits. Yeah, that isn't the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You also can't give your characters custom name. Damn, I remember naming one of them Waifu. that is stupid. The guild where shows other players secretary, now all of them will be changed to Leipzig only, and much more. Reason why the onsen skins are not available. Wait, they're disabling the onsen skin? Damn, that is savage. It is not a good day for Azur Lane, for NeuroCloud, for gacha games residing in China. And what's worse, the fact that a company can mass report another company in an attempt to attack their image, that they can attempt to disparage their competitors, ruin their reputation purely out of spite. That blows my mind. That is asinine and absolutely ridiculous, and is arguably one of the dumbest, most childish things I've heard. This company, any company that does something like this, is fucking stupid. It's no wonder your game turned out to be a piece of trash, and I hope genuinely that future games you push out continue to fail to the same degree, to the same extent, potentially even further, and that karma hits you hard. Now, if NeuroCloud and Azur Lane are not games that you're interested in, absolutely no problem. I got 2 different videos on screen right now that might be of interest to you. One featuring a list of gacha games confirmed to be launching in April 2023. The other featuring a gacha game that is right around the corner that I'm hopefully going to be streaming later in April